And I am trying to find my agenda, not that I don't know what it says, but it's nice to have a piece of paper in front of you. I got it. Thank you so much. All righty. This is the Advisory Committee on Sustainability. It is November 12th, 2019, and we have gathered in room 2. Remember, put it on the agenda, Ron.
13.
November 13th. Correction to the agenda. And we are in room 206 in Town Hall, calling the meeting to order at 12:36. I need a secretary, somebody willing to prepare minutes after the meeting. Please raise your hand.
I can do it.
Christine, you're hired.
I'm not very good at it, but I'll do it.
So the first item on the agenda is to approve past minutes. We have a quorum. I'm very excited. 5 of our regular 7 members are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. And first one up to bat is September 11th. New draft was circulated with the email yesterday. Any comments? Spelling error. No. Opportunities.
Is that the one you redid?
Yes.
You did a great job.
Yeah.
Oh,
You did a great job. That was a very difficult meeting. There's so much covered.
There was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It took a while. Sure, thank you.
Yeah. They looked at me? Yes.
Okay, can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from September 11th.
Second by Dan. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? All right. September 11th meeting minutes are approved. I will forward this on to the town clerk for official posting. Next is the October minutes prepared by Mr. Voorhees. Thank you very much. I was fine with these last time. I'm still fine with them.
Was that the one I wasn't in?
Yeah, it was just.
This
the
was
three
not
of
a,
us. Yeah.
it's not a quorum.
So the only comment that I have is the very last sentence on page 1. She is working on a frequently asked question for Darien Neighbor magazine article.
Oh, yeah.
That was actually two different things.
in one
Yeah.
sentence.
So there was a frequently asked questions that I was talking about preparing to go on the town website.
For the website.
But I did also mention that I was writing an article for Darien, the December issue of Darien Neighbor magazine. But that was on just everything that.
So we'll say she is working on an FAQ for the website, and she is writing a Darien Neighbors magazine article.
Yes.
Okay, that's sufficient. All right, so I motion for the minutes.
So who changes that? Should I do that and send it to you?
I can do it.
Okay.
I'll finish these off and get them to Donna. I'll second it because I was here. All those in favor? Well, I need someone. There we go. Good enough. Still having trouble with audio?
You have a very commanding voice.
Oh, you want to point them away from me a little bit?
I just want to put point them that way.
Oh, okay.
I need to keep
I didn't mean
them
to-
the way they are.
Okay.
Oops, is that in the way?
I can just free that. Oops.
That probably sounded good to everybody at home.
Sorry,
That's right.
great politician.
So far, I've avoided elective office, and hopefully I'm going to die that way. All right, I'm going to pull up number 7 to the top, so I don't forget it by the end of the agenda, which is approving the 2020 meeting schedule. These are just the second Wednesday of every month. Now, it shouldn't overlap with any holidays. And it doesn't overlap near Election Day. It's the week before in November. How does everybody feel about the day and the time, Wednesday at 12:30? Is that?
I was going to ask if we're going to keep it 12:30.
You want to go back to 12, or you just?
I'd like 12.
You like 12?
I'd like 12.
We had moved it to 12:30 so that Terry could arrive after his writing class, but Terry has been absent for the last 4 months, and I have been unable to contact him via text, cell, or email.
No.
So let's not let the tail wag the dog. If people prefer noon, we could do noon.
It's fine. Either is fine for me.
You know, we could go crazy and go 4. We could, whatever you guys want to do. But I like lunchtime. Keep it quick.
Well, what works
Yeah.
better for you?
Yeah, what works
right?
better
'Cause
for
you're
you?
taking
Yeah, I
time
know.
off from work.
Yeah, is it sure?
I like it in, although theoretically, I think in the middle of the day is still going to work better, because evenings, you never know when I might have a hearing I have to get ready for.
Yeah.
And I do like the ability to pull in town employees
Yeah.
when
Exactly.
they're available during the day, so
Is 12 or 12:30 work better for you, or doesn't matter?
that doesn't matter. Noon, probably better.
Okay.
Get some lunch at 1 o'clock.
Suggest 12 o'clock.
12
yeah.
o'clock.
Okay.
Turn to 12 to
So
12.
from now on, it's
Starting
12.
when?
That'd be January, I guess,
Okay.
since we have to let the town clerk know what our regular schedule is ahead of the new year. So that'll start in January.
So 12 o'clock.
Will there be a meeting in December?
There will be, and it'll be at 12:30.
Okay, Just want to
Yep.
make sure I don't confuse myself.
Yep. Motion on the minute, the 2020 meeting schedule.
I'm so moved.
Okay, come second.
Second.
All right, with second, all those in favor? Okay. Schedule approved. All right, so most of our time, I think, might be spent on item number 2, sustainable CT, and in particular to a presentation to the Board of Selectmen. I have to let them know officially that I am available on November 18th to provide that presentation. I was a little,
18th is?
that's Monday? Am I talking at the right level?
It's fine, just one of these died.
Oh, okay.
What time?
Did this get a?
Sorry, don't mean to
Uh,
interrupt your meeting. Mrs.
I
Varney, if
don't
you
know.
can.
I don't
Oh,
know.
okay, but it'll be the evening.
Yeah, it'll be the evening. And I was coy a little bit with Jamie because I didn't know if I was going to be ready, but as of 11:30 this morning, at least I think I'm ready. Hi, Beth. And I want to go over very specifically the presentation because one thing that is in here are a series of recommendations. And so since we are providing a series of recommendations, I would like to make sure that we have committee concurrence on those recommendations that we would be providing. So does anybody need a copy of the latest version that I sent out at 11:30?
Oh, today?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not
You
see
sent out a new
that.
version this morning?
I did.
Okay, sorry.
I kept,
Yesterday.
I kept, I
printed,
kept
yeah, me
working.
too.
Sorry.
You were busy.
Yeah.
Is it very different?
There's more stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna
There's some,
need the
there's
new
some,
Not Wi-Fi, it's not picking up the
there's
Wi-Fi here.
one. So I'm just going to kind of go down. I think what is sustainable CT, that section we've seen before. It's largely, as I said, plagiarized from Kathy's presentation to the RTM. I updated it with some new data from the new round of certifications. Again, also on what are the opportunities for Darien. That is pretty much word for word out of Kathy's presentation. I'm going to keep kind of going unless you guys want to raise your hand under these sections and say you had something to say. Our application, I summarized that. We applied for 18 actions and 275 points out of a possible 56 actions and 1,905 points. And we were awarded on 15 actions and 210 points, achieving bronze certification. And we will be formally recognized at the annual Connecticut Council on Municipalities Convention on December 3rd. The second page I thought was super helpful. I basically took the 12-page report from Sustainable CT and put it on one page. So the 10 broad categories are each labeled 1 through 10 on the left with their Sustainable CT titles. Very particularly at the top, I said, as completed by the community of Darien, because this was not the town of Darien that completed these actions. And as you look through each of these actions, I tried to make a note about the entities that were involved in the preparation of these action items, or the action items themselves. That was 26 different entities, by the way.
Wow.
Between property owners and businesses and boards and commissions and a student and Aquarian and et cetera, 26 different entities to get to those 210 awarded points. Thought that was an interesting point. So this basically says where we got points and why we got points on one handy page. Any comments on that?
Fabulous.
Yeah, it's great.
Next section is point opportunities missed. Things that we had initially thought we might get points for and decided not to submit for, or things that we did submit for and were not successful getting points for, with a little description about why we either did or did not get points. Benchmarking and tracking energy use is something that we put a lot of time into in 2016, but when we tried to get the information we needed to submit to Sustainable CT, we couldn't. We did develop a municipal energy plan, at least in draft form, back in 2016, but it was never officially adopted, so we didn't go through all of the checklist requirements to actually have it recognized for points. Achieving high energy performance for individual buildings. Beth attempted to get information that would help us out, but at the end of the day, Sustainable CT was looking for the actual certification, and you can't get actual Energy Star certification without applying for it and having independent verification. So you got to pay someone to independently verify, et cetera, et cetera. And it only lasts for a year. So the town has never done this consistently. Just because it's kind of a management, why bother? It still might be a good recommendation moving forward. Again, that placard on each of these buildings says something about what our values are. So it can still be a recommend. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
The benchmark and tracking energy, that was glitches in Energy Star portfolio management. Has other towns been able to achieve that?
I don't know.
And get points?
I don't know.
Because they seem to have the same problems we did.
So what you can check is if you go online, every town that got certified this cycle,
Their
you
application
can
is there.
you can actually go right under this particular item number and say, you know, who got this one,
Because
and
all
look
it
at their
was supposed to be
applications.
was generating a report. Every time
Yeah.
it generated the report, kicked out, the Board of Ed, and the next time it kicked out the town. And the
Yeah.
next time- Each time I generated a report, it came out with different,
Errors.
metrics.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Obviously, we want to be able to do that, but you can check, if you want to follow up and check the Sustainable CT website and see if others were successful and maybe figure out how. Increased use of renewable energy in municipal buildings, we had talked about previously. We now have an installed capacity of solar power representing somewhere in the range of 5 to 6% of our total electricity usage in town. To really get points, we would have had to get above 10%. And we would have had to have them in operation for a full year, calendar year, before the year we apply. So just timing, we weren't going to get that. Something to consider for the future. Reduce municipal solid waste, that was mine, and I'm the one that prepared the information, and it seems as though I just didn't give them all the information they needed. Very particularly per capita data for the 4 or 5 years that we gave them waste management data was needed and not provided. I only gave it to them for 1 year. And that seems to be the fault of not getting that 20 points. There's also, my overriding concern is that we're taking a narrow snapshot of our municipal solid waste because it's only what we collect at the dump. It is not what is collected by private haulers and brought directly to Bridgeport. So I think there are requirements, I don't know, I got to follow up with Ed or Darren. The DEP has requirements that we ask our haulers how much they're collecting in Darien and actually report that data. So we should see if we're doing that when they ask for their annual permits and make sure we collect and get that data. So we do have a broader picture of our waste generation moving forward. I'll put that in an email to Darren and you and talk about it, I guess. Thank you. Grow affordable housing was interesting. This came out of the housing needs study a little bit. We have grown our affordable housing inventory. However, it was when the Heights or Allen O'Neill came online in 2013 and 2014, and that was too far in the past for us to acquire points for it on the application. But looking forward, we have the Royal Town Hall homes opening up, and we have inclusionary units that are a part of the large development projects that we'll be seeing over the next few years. So we might increase a little bit moving forward, which would qualify us for some points. Promoting public transit and other mobility strategies. There was a very impressive study done by the Pedestrian Infrastructure Advisory Committee, inventorying our sidewalks, crosswalks, and ramps and other infrastructure. But that was older than 3 years, so it didn't qualify in and of itself for points. And it never made it into a formal adopted plan through some municipal process of participation saying, okay, here's what we're going to do with that information now. If that had happened, that would have lasted for 10 years and we would have gotten points for that plan. So those were our missed opportunities. Any comments on missed opportunities?
I think it's so important. And this is what struck me as I went through the whole thing, which is excellent, by the way. I think it's terrific, is that the first 2 or 3 pages you have to give it, but that's not what this is about. It's what we can do going forward. And this is the beginning of the going forward. Please pay attention to this.
Yeah. So this is a good inflection point in the presentation on Monday night.
Absolutely.
I told you that story to tell you this one.
Yeah.
That's a good comment.
I think, in addition to the point opportunity missed of things that, we applied and didn't fill it out right or couldn't get portfolio manager to work, we know there were a number of things that had we had a little more time, we knew there were things that were out there. And so it's broader than, you're exactly right what you're saying. I agree with you 100%, but I would even go a step further into knowing that on some of the things, whether it was conservation or holding public events, we never talked to the schools. We didn't really explore with arts and culture. I mean, there were areas that
sustainable events,
that we knew were out there and
were,
needed more people or more time in order to pursue them. And it also, the flip of that is the people in town did not know enough to come to us. I mean, the communication is just, we're in the infant steps of that. So the points missed aren't just the ones they didn't accept. I think it were ones that we never pursued.
There's a whole we don't know what we don't know factor, or we do know what we don't know that we're not even talking about.
We knew what we knew, but we didn't have time to even go after it. So, so I
and
just
we
think
made that decision early on, because there was a question, and I think we were in Jamie's office when we talked about it, was do we move forward and submit in August and plant our flag and try to get certified at the bronze level, or do we start a discussion that is broader and lives longer? And we made a strategic decision, let's plant our flag, and that'll be the start of, okay, let's have the discussion now.
And my hope is that this is the start of the discussion. My apprehension is that it will, unless we kind of immediately starting with the Board of Selectmen, begin to describe what we did or what things are recognizable in the state as being kind of leading edge stuff that we either can do or could do.
Yeah, you have a town like Simsbury that got silver. Very, similar town to Darien, if you will. You got Vernon, 29,000 people. They had 800 points.
And so it's the number of people working on it partly. We also met a community where there was one person, and the Department of Public Works
it was his passion, but
manager.
It became a passion project.
One of the people we
and,
met that
and they put all the hours into
100 hours of the work themselves.
That's right, there were professional staff.
Staff that did the whole thing. So they applied, town resources for time. But
a lot of this is contained in the next couple of pages.
Okay.
But I think here's what I see as the important part is they have asked us each individually if we want to continue on with the advisory committee on sustainability. We're going to have at least one new, if it moves forward, we're going to have at least one new member, Pamela Sparkman, behind me. And I'm also going to try to get Cliff on officially because he said he is interested. But we are here dedicating our free time and energy. And the recommendations and the takeaways that will be a part of this presentation on Monday night are important in that we want to know how they're going to be received, right? If they are received with encouragement, then I'm on board. Let's keep going, right? But if this is met with cynicism or resistance, which I'm not saying that it's going to be, we've had great support from the administration so far, then that may affect our individual or collective decisions about how we want to spend our time. So this is happening at the same time, our renewal
Sure.
and our new charge for 2020 and this presentation. And I'll have that conversation with Jamie that this is kind of a full package, if that's what we decide after getting through it. So, moving on. So takeaways, again, those should look familiar. Those are from Kathy's RTM presentation. And then what I did in the middle of page 4 of 5 is now start explaining very specific recommendations. And the first 3 is kind of the 3 we've been talking about, what you have to address before you even get into, more typical action items. 1 is put sustainability on the agenda, 2 is improve access to information, and 3 is provide effective communication. So on putting sustainability on the agenda, I say exactly that, which is we need to move beyond the passionate group of volunteers. How do we do that? It can only be sustainable if it is a part of the process and milieu. How can we borrow from the framework that Sustainable CT presents and advance actions that will benefit the town of Darien? We found that direct conversations inspired creative thinking, and so perhaps it is as simple as putting sustainability on the agenda for regular discussion. We recommend asking each department to present and describe how they can support, accelerate, and recognize sustainable actions. So there is that idea. It's not just us working here once a month and in our homes at night. It is it going to be on the agenda?
And I think you have a couple of success stories. I believe that the work that Human Resources did.
Yeah,
She understands, Ally and Diane understand what they did. I mean, yes, Human Services. Understood that in having a conversation, meeting with the equity coach, thinking about themselves, coming up with an idea, there was a process and they got it, and it was something that they could describe in its own department setting.
Yeah.
You have been involved with this in many of the things over a period of time with
Yeah.
solar and the solid waste. So
When you talk about it, things happen. I stand by the statement that we found that direct conversation inspired creative
exactly,
thinking.
and I think
Yeah.
you have people
We had
in this building that could already
Planning and zoning was
articulate
helping
this.
out,
Exactly. The
Human
Watershed
Services,
Commission.
DPW was helping out, it just, as soon as you said, hey, what about this? People said, oh, well, we could do it, we're doing that. Park and
Right.
Rec was thinking about things
Right.
and, so.
The Watershed Commission, the
Yeah.
work that
Yeah,
was
the
done
Harbor-
there.
Harbor-
So you've
the
got
Coastal
sort of
Commission,
town
yep.
people and commission people that have done things that have
Yeah.
netted positive impact. for
And
the
again,
community.
our goal was application more than it was communication, right? And so now, the goal is communication. That's really these
Yep.
first 3 goals.
And you're
Yes.
certified for what, 2 years or what?
3.
3,
Yeah.
so 3 years, so.
Yeah, we talked about we can go through a year of kind of,
Brainstorming.
planning and selecting, and then a year of implementation, and then a year of documentation, and then reapply theoretically for a silver would be the idea.
Or you could do it sooner, and some of what you've done would continue,
Yeah.
points would continue.
You can
figure out
kind of
what
use
could-
it as a documenting tool.
Yes,
over
you
time.
could say 2 years from now, these points remain, and this is what we would be,
Yeah.
keep doing if we were to make larger steps forward. It isn't all back to zero in some cases, depending on the look back.
So that was putting sustainability on the agenda, improving access to information. We recommend dedicating a portion of the town website to store and disseminate information related to sustainable actions. If you know what you're looking for and it has been uploaded, you can find information on the town website. However, not all information is uploaded, and sometimes digging through various department pages to find information is not intuitive. We can start simply by organizing the information that we used for our successful application to Sustainable CT. Although all of it is available on Sustainable CT, it is not intuitive to a Darien resident to look there for information about their town, as one example of why it's a good idea to have a section of the website. Provide effective communications. This is where I make the point that there were at least 26 different entities involved in the successful actions completed for certifications. These ranged from municipal departments, boards, committees, and commissions, community nonprofits, property owners, businesses, citizens, and students. There are dozens more similar entities doing related work that could support sustainable actions. As may be expected, goals, activities, and information between these specialized groups can be compartmentalized. In other words, we don't know what each other are doing. Using the website noted above and crowdsourced cloud-based technology, we can try to improve the collaboration between entities involved in sustainability. Any further comments on those first three kind of broad goals before I go on?
A fourth area of communication, or maybe it
Yeah.
comes at the end of these, is I think an outreach with the school system. And I would want to
Yes,
start that at the
POE.
superintendent, at the Board of Ed level, at the superintendent level, as opposed to with teachers or principals. I mean, it's great to always find a pilot program, and I have some ideas on that from what we attended in Britain, but that to me seems like a whole area of discussion that over a couple of years in terms of curriculum and food waste and
I agree.
composting.
100%. And I was having this conversation with Amanda just before we started the meeting about, groups working at the grassroots level from the elementary schools up versus at the administration level down. And I think it is time now to go to the superintendent and to go to the Board of Education and say, what are we doing about sustainability? What are we teaching our kids about living sustainable lives when they're in the school system and everything in the cafeteria is single use and 90% of it is thrown away? What are we teaching them about resource use in the future? And there are 100 opportunities,
Right,
1,000 opportunities.
educational
Yeah.
opportunities when you
Yeah.
have internships
But-
and other
So,
educational programs.
let's get it on the agenda.
Yes.
How do we get it on the agenda?
Yes, that's
right?
basically what I'm
So,
getting. So I don't know
right.
whether you make that be at the bottom of your list,
Yeah,
page 5, or whether that's
or
a
insert
communication piece.
insert it in each three, maybe, involve the Board of Ed, something like that, yeah. But that would be a primary goal, I agree.
Major
All right, moving on. Now we get into a little more granular, specific recommendations, and I didn't go exhaustively. I kind of took three big ones and went for them. One is implement sustainable purchasing. Thank you to Cliff for preparing a draft of what a simple version might look like. It's the back page to what we all have. We can look at that too. But summarized, the goal of the policy is to seek out and consider sustainable products and services in all the town's purchasing activities, and to acquire such products and services whenever practical and justifiable. This is one way of putting sustainability on the agenda. And if you guys want to take 1 minute or 2 minutes and just read through this, what I will call, with your permission, a starting point
Yes,
for discussion.
absolutely. Well, I also, I don't think you need it for your presentation, but I sent out as well, I think to everybody on the committee, one from a town in California, I think it was. And it's really, very lengthy and very detailed. I mean, it must have taken a lawyer to draft that, a couple $1,000 or something. I don't know if it has to be that complicated and that difficult. It seems to me you can start at a much more principled level.
Yes, we thought about it.
Yeah.
This is where we want to start.
Yeah.
We just want to get it on the agenda. But yes, you could drive, this could go, this 12 pages could be 200 pages. You can go anywhere you want with what does it mean to be sustainable, but without wanting an ordinance or our administration to be the arbiters of what it is and what it isn't on a granular level. What we're saying is we would like to consider it in our purchases. If there's a viable, practical, feasible option that doesn't bust the budget, we should be doing it. Let me know when you guys have read through that.
Done.
A adequate starting point for everyone? Okay. Then moving on recommendations, we have support zero emission vehicle deployment. You know what I didn't say is host. I guess it's kind of right. And I say major automakers are investing tens of billions of dollars in all electric vehicle development. All electric vehicles are clearly going to represent a significant portion of the vehicles on the road in the not so distant future. It seems logical the town consider a pilot program that identifies the most appropriate cars in the town fleet to transition to electric. Purchasing one or two vehicles initially will allow us to determine how best to use them, the infrastructure necessary to support them, and compare the per mile life cycle costs of operating them, as maintenance costs and fueling costs are both theoretically lower.
How difficult is that to implement? Let's go 1 to 10.
Yeah. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's going forward, it's not, it's future purchases.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I want you to speak freely.
But we're not
Every-
here to make, like, more work for everybody else to do it. We're just trying to make them make conscientious decisions when they have to make decisions.
Well, listen, in any of these items, it doesn't have to be about this, there's work involved.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of is there a benefit at the end? And we all know with electric vehicles, eventually there's going to be one. Every other year, I'm asked to look at the purchasing of electric vehicles, and every year I find out that they still haven't addressed the battery issue for these things, and the replacement of them are expensive. So after 4 or 5 years of replacing those batteries in those cars, and they're about $8,000 to $10,000 a piece by the time you're done. Now that price has come down a little bit slower and slower, and eventually they're going to figure it out. But, you know, do I think the town should have one to kind of show itself? Yeah, eventually that's my recommendation. It's going to be to the Board of Selectmen to do that, and to Kate. But as of right now, it's not. We don't have a charging station to charge it from either.
Well, that's,
the next piece.
I missed that in here, which is host a charging station. You know, we don't have a electric car charging station on any municipal property.
So, I'm looking for it, and I may have let it go.
Yeah.
There are two ways this works. One is a longer-term planning process of the broader conversation of electric school bus transportation, and there is a kind of a consortium of people in the state of Connecticut and Fairfield County that are beginning to do their research. Again, Darien shouldn't have to do this on its own, but there is, in fact, a couple of weeks ago, there was a conference called People Who Are Trying to Have a Forum.
There's actually a conference today.
And then I was going to say, and second of all, and I think I must have deleted them because I keep searching and it's not
Yeah.
coming up, there was a Sustainable Fairfield County, so our surrounding communities, New Cane and Wilton, Fairfield, Westport.
They're all starting to think about it.
They're working as a group and holding seminars probably to talk about exactly what you just talked about, things like battery life and what
infrastructure do you
what
need? How do we
infrastructure
do
could you
this?
need, how could you do it, is there group purchasing power and those kinds. So there is a meeting right now, today, on that very subject. And related to that, I don't know if he's any longer the mayor or the head of the town of Fairfield, had one electric vehicle, and he told his story at Grace Farms. I don't know if you were there for part of his presentation, where I think the town was given one by Chevrolet and by a local dealer, and they ultimately gave it to the building inspector, who would drive around the Fairfield and then leave it and then drive around the next day and plug it in overnight. And they found it to be a very effective use of transportation with a very specific application.
Yep.
That isn't long distance travel and had ample time to charge. That doesn't solve your 5-year problem with the battery when it needs to. But so there's a lot of work going on in this area, and I would hope our community could, I can go to these meetings,
Yeah,
but
and but again, it is, if you go to every meeting,
it's in my
we're not,
head.
we're also not spreading that institutional knowledge, and
And as I know
but
about
it
these,
is-
where's the
but it
network
is
for me
extra
to
work
send those
to get
information?
Ed or someone in his
Exactly.
department to go and listen.
Maybe we
If
need
that's
to
a half
hire
day,
a
they, you know,
sustainability coach kind of thing to
other
do that.
towns have that, but I guess I'm trigger
That's-
shy when recommending the town add
I'm
personnel.
sort of teasing
so.
when I said that, but,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there is information, like even for today, how
Yeah.
do we get that information
Yes.
to people for whom
It's out
that
there.
would be valuable
People are talking about
information.
it. Real people are talking about it.
And
People
they're
in the auto
doing the work
industry.
that we
people
don't
in
want to
the-
repeat. You
Yes.
don't want to reinvent the wheel
Yeah.
if there's knowledge and people have kicked the tires
I
on
like that.
that.
It's good. It's
There's
amazing how
I'm
many times
sorry.
that happens.
still questions that they can't answer,
Sure.
like the life of the vehicle itself.
Sure.
Just the batteries, the life of it. And then there's the component of, okay, what if it breaks down? There are not too many mechanics that work for us either, so.
Yeah, you gotta send it to
You gotta send it back
a specialized
to the
dealership.
to work on it. So those are some things that need to be ironed out in the near future, I hope.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
They've been around long enough now that we should be getting some better expertise on it.
And I will probably get a readout of this particular seminar today, and if there's any Q&A or discussion of those things, I'd be happy to share it with you when it comes back around.
But I think
Just
that-
as what those issues are.
But
Not
my
that they're
point
solved.
is, it's coming.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
technology is improving. The infrastructure is growing. And it's coming. You know, major automakers are transitioning, you know. Anyway, so. I can throw a host of charging station in there too. Any more comments on that zero emission vehicle deployment? Last one was continued deployment of rooftop solar PV systems. Set a goal to generate 10% of the town's electricity needs with solar power and develop a plan to accomplish same. There is capacity for a second project at Town Hall and significant potential on school rooftops as roof membranes are replaced. There is. Yeah, we have a separate meter and a separate roof.
Yeah, that separate meter runs the big stuff, the AC units and the
Yeah.
elevators.
Yeah. As long as it's got a certain amount of power used for the year. I mean,
Yeah, I
that's-
just- I don't-
You do a net metering offset.
I don't know if you'll get generate the power that you need to draw those for those items.
Perhaps a professional should investigate.
I know you're dying to put it on that roof over there.
Well, there's a flat roof over there and a slope.
It's low.
I do have a fourth one for your suggestion.
Okay.
Like,
Anyway, let me
Run out
finish. In addition to the production of clean energy, doubling our generation capacity could save the town hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of the system life cycle. So a fourth one.
Carol and I were lucky enough to go to New Britain when the first informal announcement of the communities that were noted as bronze and sustainable at the New Britain Art Museum a week or so ago. And a large part of the meeting, beyond identifying who those communities were, was to present and explain and encourage that anyone that's registered as sustainable, you don't have to be certified already, but certification is fine, would take advantage of Sustainable Connecticut Community Match Funds. They have developed, please, you jump in or you can fill in after me. They've developed a considerable amount of revenue in the, I think, $500,000 kind of range that is meant to get people to continue with the action steps that are on here and to move towards sustainable systems. And the funds are available to towns and to groups within a community. And it's very broad. There are not strict guidelines as to what the action is, but they need to be related to those 9 action categories.
For example, if we want to host an electric car charging station, we can apply
Exactly.
for matching funds.
Exactly. If we wanted to try food composting in the schools and at the high school or
We could
whatever.
apply for matching
And
funds
so
to launch the program.
there is funds, and we met and spoke to the gentleman that is in charge of this. And the money is there until it's gone. Let's just
Right.
put it that way.
Right.
So
And so if your
we would
to-do list
basically
we would be
avail
exploring
ourselves of the matching fund opportunity.
this. Correct.
Would it be available to have a sustainable part-time person to
I-
pay
it
them
could
as a
be very
salary to
interesting.
help out all
Oh,
these?
It could be a
actually
very
hire
interesting
someone.
way to say, to extend the reach of sustainable CT in a community with a human being would be an interesting thing. There seem to be no real guidelines. And the part that's even more unique about this, and it's noted on one of my original presentation, IOBY is, there's also an organization that will help you develop some crowdsourcing funding for things that go along with your own funding and your match money. So there's a well thought out and staffed
So
organization.
theoretically, we could commit town funds, or we could create a system of public outreach to generate funds that then can be matched.
If you were to do something in a school system or whatever it might be, or a EV station, or to get
Like
the
theoretically,
car manufacturer to fund
just
you to have a charge.
Brainstorming, if we thought of something that we thought was a good idea, and we went to the community fund, we said, hey, will you pay for half of this? And they say,
Exactly.
sure, we'll pay for half of that, and then we can go to this one and say, will you pay for the other half?
You need at least
Yeah.
5 contributors, didn't it say?
Oh,
We
okay.
did not go through all the details. They were
Okay.
but we.
So for
but
now,
they're
we can
hosting-
stay at avail ourselves of a matching grant.
Yes, and they're more than available to come, I'm sure, and talk to our meeting and to explain anything we need explained. Be happy to invite them to come to one of our meetings.
I think that's a great addition to the recommendations, and it kind of opens a lot of ideas, and I can include this, a scan of this in the materials.
Carolyn, did I miss anything?
No,
You-
no, just, and I mean, just again, no deadlines, no long application. The money's there until it's not. There's really no limit other than the fact that it, fits in with sustainability.
We also have to remember, we're a small committee. Just saying that we hit 26 different entities
Yes.
is a lot. We're spreading thin. So we do need one person to, kind of head us up a little, not just a volunteer, but somebody that it becomes more of a day-to-day operation so that we're not,
Well, it's an interesting concept that would be, if you were to speak to the executive director of Sustainable CT, Lynn Stoddard, and find out if how other communities have approached it, and 2 years in, is it all volunteer? I mean, I think by town it's different. It's all volunteer. It was one person with 100 hours somewhere else. But I think the communities that are in their second year are
Okay.
evolving, and a really interesting
I
conversation.
think going
how
back,
they're
I mean, look,
staffing it.
having, I've served on committees without staff support. I have served on committees with staff support. The amount of work that you can get done with staff support is far greater, so I get
We saw that with our interns this summer.
But if, oh my God, yeah, we couldn't have done this without
Right.
them.
Oh,
Exactly.
we met Kendra's dad, by the way.
Oh, Keith, yeah.
Yeah,
He was there.
Oh, that's right, because actually his company is one of the sponsors.
yes.
Yes.
it just might be a next logical step.
Yeah, well, yeah. Any help is good help. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't want it to be one person's job. We want it to be everybody's job.
True, but if you have one person to point to and just, so it's not
Yeah.
emails going to every single person
Yeah.
on those nitty-gritty details on your action.
But the word, and again, I totally get the idea of help, but does one person, and this is maybe why to have a conversation with what other towns are doing and what they found successful, does one person effectively become the magnet and it prevents it from being everybody's job, right? Because, that's their job.
Hopefully not. I mean,
Yeah,
we've all
yeah.
been kind of pulling our weight.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's nice to, that they have the expertise. Like you had the binder. Everybody came to you with your action and you wrote it in and updated the binder. So you were kind of the appointed bookkeeper of the whole sustainable application. Going forward, we know how intricate each action is and how they want it and how many times we've written those actions, got them back, got feedback. We're not always going to have
But
interns
the other
to
thing
do
is
the next level of
what-
certification.
we talked a little bit about this last couple of meetings, the idea of playing to the application for points versus using the framework to become a more sustainable community, whether or not
I think we did
we're
both.
playing for.
I think
yeah.
we did both. I think
It's
we asked ourselves a lot of good
Yeah.
questions, and then we were like, okay, well, how do I get those 10 points?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and well, how many hoops do I have to
But-
jump through to get them?
I'm not sure, and I don't know that we'd find support for, paying someone to get us points for an application, right?
I don't
because
think that's
we
the
want
end goal.
to.
I don't think that's the
You
end
know,
goal.
the end
at
goal
all.
is
But I do
becoming
think-
more sustainable because by the way, like 90% of the things that we've done in the last 7 years have saved the town money.
Mm-hmm.
We could afford our own person with all the money that we've saved.
Well, you're asking for a
Not
seat
very.
at the table, on the agenda.
Yeah.
So, you're going to need one person to go to those meetings. And you're also going to need, okay, we wanted to explore XYZ, now any volunteers? Okay, now work one-on-one with that person and just be a point person.
So,
Because
but your thought is that
if we have money.
if we look at this as, is there an intern, or is there 10 hours a week of support?
I don't
we
know
can
the
buy
framework,
we
don't
can buy
know the
with this.
framework, but
Yeah.
I just think that it's bigger than just all of us trying to put all our stuff in on a computer formatted.
I think
Yeah.
you're talking more about someone that has a town email that is somehow
Yeah.
able to attend your meeting or go to the school
Or-
department
or,
or
you
whatever
know,
it might be,
If we
answer
have
committee
funding
questions.
that's allocated to the sustainability, use those funds, that's what I'm trying to say. And then not necessarily, like you said, add a different personnel to the
Yeah.
town.
Or is there someone in the town who's,
Exactly.
who's, with the right? Yeah. Got it.
Because I think that we did hit the low-hanging fruit, and, now it's really in-depth, and now you're really asking for a lot more time commitment for every member.
Mhm.
If in fact the decision is to try to continue actions through this committee, or whether it's to try to, I tend to view things through the eyes of a career in consumer packaged goods marketing, and in that framework, it's you're trying to convince the people around you to take on the ideas and to own
Yeah.
them themselves.
Yeah.
So I believe there's a marketing component of this, and whether that's a marketing component done by this committee or by the first selectman,
or
both, or a
everybody.
combination
Yeah.
of anybody, and
Everybody.
that
I think
committee is talking to the
it's going to continue to
commissions.
take all hands on deck.
Exactly, but that's someone that's talking to the commissions and meeting with the RTM, and if you really were to evolve, if it were to evolve, it would have dialogue outside of this committee.
Yeah.
And it's spreading the word so that people's actions ultimately could be captured in another application.
I'd hire Kendra for the job.
I know, I would too, or
You
Chadwick.
could hire her next summer. just,
Exactly.
on a college internship
Exactly,
basis.
Well,
Exactly.
the only reason I brought it up is because it was about funding.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, yeah.
instead of using it as, a couple of these targets, use it for somebody that can do
Yeah.
spread a lot further.
Yeah, if our goal is starting with marketing, before we even get to specific projects, why not have a person that can help with that?
And would that be something that would be considered a grant-worthy activity if you were to define it as
Yeah.
a part of
Yeah. Yeah. And so
becoming
we'd
a
have to talk to
sustainable
them.
community?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a crazy idea.
So really,
but
so we're starting with
Carolyn
the
had an
basic
idea.
concept of avail ourselves,
Yes.
and does that mean personnel support or a specific project? Does it mean
Exactly.
collaboration with other nonprofits? What is it? And just kind of, that's our
Carolyn had
recommendation.
one, you could do multiples. Carolyn had one about if we were to try to have a shredding day, because
Hmm.
we can't shred. That could you ask for matching funds for that,
Yeah.
that would be.
Is that,
No, and you should like this because it would keep shredded paper out of single stream.
yes, it should,
Fine, what is shredding day? I don't know what that means.
you buy one of those, or you rent one of, or you contract with a company that has one of those big shredding trucks.
On-site shredding is.
Yes, and you
Yeah.
advertise to the town, say, Saturday, November 15th, come down to the DPW and shred your documents.
Or the
There'll be
train station where
there'll be a truck
we're
there, or where,
just that-
could be, yeah.
Town
Uh,
hall even.
Could be a household hazardous waste day at the train station. Come down with your shredded paper and your pesticides.
Maybe we shouldn't confuse the two.
Yeah, but
Sorry, Ed,
similar
for
to
making
household
you
hazardous
cringe.
waste day, a shredding day.
Yes.
Same concept.
And then that way
Should
people
be in your
would not
budget
be
anyway.
putting their shredded paper in single stream.
All the reduction in money spent on household hazardous weights. Wow.
We could afford it. See, he's on our side.
Well, it might not even cost the town anything, because, for example, in Westport and in Greenwich, I spoke to 3 or 4 different towns that have these events, and most of them charge residents for it, and they charge either on a per-car basis or they charge on a per-banker's box basis. And they have no issue getting people to come with their shredding. I mean, it's not like, oh, if we charge...
Oh, so people are willing to spend
Oh,
$5
yeah.
a box or whatever
Well,
it is.
it's
or-
$2 a box in
Oh,
Greenwich
wow.
and $5 a car in Westport. And then there's another town where it's free to the residents, but there's a foundation that supports it. It would, all in told, it would be about probably $1,000 to $1,200 for an event. So,
I like the idea of self-funding, yeah.
yeah.
All right, so item 2A, the summary and presentation to the Board of Selectmen, November 18th. Any comments, further comments on the materials and the text? Wanna make-
Very well done.
Yeah, very
Thank you.
well done.
Thank you. So what I would like is basically a motion to approve the content for presentation on Monday.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous of the 6 folks that are voting members. Excellent, thank you. Item 2B was this link to Patch, which picked up the press release on the Sustainable CT that Carolyn helped draft. Thank you, Carolyn.
And then I should
My-
just forward
My
it. that-
ghostwriter.
Yeah.
And I wanted to point out in that email I sent you yesterday, there was suggestion by Sustainable CT that we start to highlight
Any articles?
a specific sustainable
Yeah.
story kind of thing.
Okay, should I send them this one, the press release, just to get them started?
Well, maybe let's talk offline about
Okay.
exactly how to do this.
Okay.
So moving on to item 3, food scrap recycling. Again, thank you, Carolyn. Through her efforts, we got some PR in the Darien Times on the 1-year anniversary of the food scrap program. Anything else on food scraps right now?
I mean, it's going well.
I've got to get my table and chairs, by the way. I need them for Thanksgiving.
Right, you have your chairs.
Oh, I have my chair?
You have your chairs, we have your table.
The tent.
And
I
tent.
don't need the tent, but I should get it back anyway.
Okay, yeah, yeah, we haven't actually been using the tent
Yeah.
this year. I mean, it's going pretty well. I don't have the numbers for the
October.
tonnage for October. I just haven't gotten that from Cindy. But it's, it's pretty steady, approximately 3/4 of a ton a week. It's going to be a little bit more now because of the pumpkins.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Give me a little pumpkin weight.
Right, but those are being managed pretty effectively because they're just being quartered and used to top off the full bins.
Oh, okay.
Because, and the guys there even pointed out that after they move the bins aside.
settle a little bit?
It settles,
Okay,
and then they
and
can stuff more in.
Which is
so-
free for us because we get charged by the bin. Well done.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
our
Very, very
personnel for us.
So there's that. There've been a couple issues with contamination, not that has been reported back to us, but just things that I've noticed
Plastic
myself.
bags.
Plastic, yeah, and more than plastic bags. I mean, literally, plastic packaging, which is
yeah.
no. So I just am running regular,
Yeah.
posts about, not.
You said it in the article, it's on the sign, it's
Yeah.
on the flyers, you're just posting it on social media.
Literally one
and people do
day,
it.
I was there selling kits, and I stopped 2 people from putting plastic in. I mean, I think sometimes you literally just have to do that.
Yes. Yeah, we talked about that with recycling.
Yeah,
As you
Yes.
know.
yeah.
Can you even just paint on those bins? I mean, not spending any more money, like no plastic bags.
Well, they're not our bins, so we can't
Yeah, okay.
paint on them, but,
You probably could put a sticker on them.
No plastic.
yeah.
No plastic.
No
plastic.
It's
Red
on the
line.
sign,
Well-
it's on- yeah.
Quite frankly, that's something that, if it's on the bins, because sometimes the bins get changed out, so they're not just, and so.
We have a sign there, maybe we just need some fluorescent thing on the bottom of it.
I mean,
No,
if
plastic.
curbside compost got, a couple hundred bumper stickers made that say no plastic, they
Yeah.
could put a no
Yeah.
plastic bumper sticker on all their
Right.
things,
That's a good, I'll
Might
make that
be
suggestion
to
to
Nick.
Yeah,
him,
they might be
because,
happy
yeah,
with
he's
that.
got so many bins, he might,
Yep.
he might
Yeah.
wanna do that. Yeah, but I mean, as you know, I mean, we have no plastic bags, 2 no plastic bag signs right there at Single Stream. What do we get in Single Stream?
Yeah.
We get plastic bags, so, sometimes the signage is, people just, they,
Ed, from your perspective, how are things going with fruit scraps? You happy with the program?
I did the numbers for the past year. I mean, about where we thought it would be for the first year, which was good. I hope to see the increase in use. I would hope that there'd be a couple other vendors that we could start looking into for maybe better pricing or
I
competitive.
heard there is another vendor
Because-
in Fairfield.
That summertime when we double down on the
Yeah.
bin and pick up on the bins, it's killing the budget.
Yeah. Killing
the balance,
Where you're
yeah.
trying to keep it, kind of breaking even or close to it.
Yeah.
That
It's
time
that
period, those
extra
3
per
months.
visit, yeah, the
And,
extra one visit.
I understand we need it from Scarsdale. They kept saying, just make sure you watch it in the summertime because it does start to smell bad. But he's the only game in town right now, or as far as I knew. until
There's
now.
one in Fairfield, I just don't know if he's willing to come here, but I have a name that I'm going to look into.
And, City Carding is quote unquote managing it.
Yeah.
But, our big hit is the pickup of the bins.
Are you negotiating with City Carding right now? No? Okay. Not that you can disclose?
We've had some meetings to discuss the operation and the
Okay.
facility itself and so on.
Thank you. All right, I want to move on a little bit. We've exhausted our hour, which is my informal cutoff, so we just want to get through some of this stuff. We had a little snafu with the grant report, although it was finished in April, it didn't quite get up to.
They
we'll
have
see you
it
soon.
now, they have it now.
Recycle CT, recycle.
Yeah, Recycle CT
CT.
Foundation.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Any issues with the swap shop right now, or everything's good?
Well, the colder it gets, the less people that come in, so it's slow.
Okay.
But it's, people still love it.
Anything new on the police station last
We
month?
are implementing some of the improvements that they recommend. We got some pricing too on some building management systems that we want to take over. So there's some movement now. It's nice to have an extra set of hands helping out. We've made some slow progress on some of the
New Tony?
deficiencies. Tony,
Yeah.
yeah. He's actually stepping, well, him and David both now are with the new chief, who is, as we all know, been there a long time and
Yep.
just about fed up with the way the building is. So,
So there's some focus on it.
yeah, we're doing our best to kind of keep him at ease and keep him moving forward. So this budget season, you'll see some requests for improvements over there.
Cool. Item 5, anything you want to add on marketing, outreach, and education at the moment?
Just the letter to the editor that we'll have in tomorrow's paper.
Was it received and they're going to go with it?
Yeah,
Okay.
she'll put it in. It's just, November 15th is America Recycles Day, nationally recognized as America, and it's just to reinforce the idea of recycling and reducing and reusing. So we put because in talking to people, I've noticed a lot of people, when they got their dump stickers, they also got the new single-stream recycling guidelines. But a lot of people didn't really bother to look at them because they just assumed nothing had changed. I've had more people say that to me, like they just think once it's put in place, it's always going to be that way. So they, recycled their thing. So this is just to remind people that there was a new
There's
set
constant.
of guidelines.
Please always look at the latest,
Yes,
Yeah,
and
I think
that
it's really
the-
good messaging.
And the
Yeah.
3 main things not to put in single stream anymore are
plastic bags and plastic film, shredded paper, and styrofoam, and to refer people to the guidelines, just to let them know they were new this year.
Another really well-written article by me.
And what I'll do is, Craig, I'll spin it off, and I'll also send it to the Patch and to the Dairy Night, and I'll put some pictures in too, because there's more. I'll beef it up a little bit for that.
So there's a couple of events coming up. There is an event called Climate Crisis held on November 22nd at the Bushnell Theater. I think you're going to take the slot that we're allocated.
We're allocated. I offered to go. I have
Yeah.
not been given any feedback.
Okay, well, I'll respond to that email and say, or you can, I'll both respond and say you are interested in going. We get one free through the town, and then if anyone else would like to go, did Jamie say she would cover it in that email? I don't remember.
She
did.
responded
Yeah,
to
yeah.
I did
So
respond
she
to
said
her
if
that I'm
No,
anyone-
she said
interested
she
in
would be at the
nobody-
CCM thing.
She's going to be at the one in December 3rd at the Foxwoods.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can grab
I
the email
might
while
go
we're
with you,
talking.
Kathy, to the,
Yeah.
yeah, I just.
I promise we won't get lost.
Do they, yeah, right, do they still have tickets, well, we'll find out if they still have tickets available.
Okay.
Because I know they
suspect
said it
do.
was going to sell out.
I don't have it right here. Does anybody else have an interest in going to that? What is it? And how long is it? Where is it?
It's in the evening. It's in the evening.
Yeah, I think it's
in the evening in
$25.
Hartford.
Is it $25?
Yeah, it was free for one, each sustainable CT community or got a ticket, and then anybody else can purchase a ticket. So there would be an admission fee for a second person.
If you're
Yeah, I think
interested,
it's-
either raise your hand now or send me an email by the end of the day.
I might go. I have to check my calendar, but I
will
would
look
like
it
to
up
go.
here.
And then the next one is the CCM conference at Foxwoods on December 3rd. The official recognition ceremony is 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Jamie has asked me to attend. I will, although it's not very sustainable to drive to Foxwoods and back just to accept a plaque or a piece of paper.
Take the electric vehicle the town has.
Yeah, we could carpool in our electric vehicle to go there.
Are you going to that?
Okay,
Yeah.
so her letter said, "You are welcome to recommend someone from your committee to attend the climate crisis event on 11/22. I am
Someone,
unable
okay.
to attend, but
Okay.
I believe that anybody could go.
So,
Additional
We'll get one
people.
free pass, but then if you
One
want to go, you got to pay
complimentary
$25.
Correct. It's November 22nd at 7:30 at the Bushnell. Interactive discussion, and it's through the ConnecticutForum.org. So
right.
I'm sure we can check into getting another ticket. The other thing was the recognition ceremony. Jamie will be all day at the CCM event, but the luncheon, which recognizes the community, is on December 3rd. There'll be, and then they're also hosting innovative project funding for communities, which I presume is on the agenda for one of the breakout sessions in the afternoon. You can register for luncheon alone or the entire event. So if anybody wants to go to lunch to be at the recognition ceremony, that would be
You have to register.
11:30 to 1 at Foxwoods on December 3rd.
Yeah, I have to register. Are you coming?
And if anybody wanted to stay and go through some of the stuff, Sustainable CT is presenting, but then you have to register probably for the whole
Are
day.
you going?
I would like to go to the lunch. I don't know
So,
that I would
Craig,
register for the
you-
whole day.
Well, they also point out that the next hour, 1:45 to 2:45, they're running a
Session.
workshop on innovative funding.
Which I believe is this
The
community
same one you
map
already
stuff.
heard,
I
yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
might be worthwhile.
It would be much more in-depth question and answer than what we
Than what
got
we-
with sort of
Okay.
a 5-minute overview.
So if we drive all the way up for that 2 hours, we might stay for another hour.
Exactly. So, and I don't know. if-
Assuming we can.
I don't know if you have
if
to
we're not
pay for the
registered
whole
for the
day.
event,
Yeah,
yeah.
that would be the question.
Yep. Okay.
All right?
I should have attached this to the email, but I'm going to ask for your. So, has anyone heard of Eunice Newton Foote?
What is it?
Eunice Newton Foote, female scientist.
No,
No.
Okay, well, she was an American scientist, lived from 1819 to 1888. She was the first person to discover that a glass tube filled with carbon dioxide heated up quicker when exposed to the sun than a glass tube filled with ambient air. And this was 160 years ago. The air was exhausted from one end and condensed in the other, and they were both placed in sunlight side by side with a thermometer in each. In a short period of time, the temperature in the receiver containing condensed air rose 30 degrees higher than the other, thus proving conclusively that greater density of air on low levels is at least one cause of greater heat in valleys than on mountains. This is literally an article from the time. Experiments were also tried with moist air versus dry air. Hydrogen gas was placed in one receiver, oxygen in the other. When the temperature of the oxygen rose to 104, or hydrogen rose to 104, but oxygen to 106, while in carbonic acid, CO2, a more dense gas than either, it rose to 126 degrees. It is believed and taught by geologists that during the period preceding the Carboniferous era, when the coal bed materials were forming, the atmosphere of the Earth contained immense quantities of carbonic acid, and that there was a very elevated temperature of atmosphere in existence in comparison with that of the present day. Those who believe that this Earth was once a fiery ball attribute this ancient great atmospheric heat to the elevated temperature of the Earth, but Mrs. Foote's experiments attribute it to a more rational cause.
A female scientist.
And she could not present her work to a conference of scientists. She had to give her work to a male scientist in order for it to be presented.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Yeah. Everybody says the science behind it is really hard, but like literally you put a thermometer
Yeah.
in
Right,
air
right.
and a thermometer in carbon dioxide, and this one goes up quicker. Not that hard to do.
Well, there's all hard.
Oh yes, Channel 79, we are adjourned. It is 1:40.